our class tonight. It is calligraphy, beginning calligraphy. And we're going to go through our packet very quickly. And then we have a really neat summer project to do tonight. Either make a sign about lemonade or our Wi-Fi password or something like that on our chalkboard. So stick around. We're going to have fun learning how to do that. And what I'll do is I'll start going through the packet, and Rachel will be here for soon, I'm sure. Okay, so I'm going to spotlight my video. There we go. Sorry about that. I'm not sure I was big before. I'm going to change it to my overhead camera so that you guys can see. Okay, so when we're learning calligraphy, we can use anything, any instrument we want. We can use a pencil, we can use Crayola markers, we can use calligraphy pens, we can use tombos. Just about everything you'll be able to do some sort of faux, either calligraphy or faux calligraphy to get the result of the modern calligraphy that we're looking for, okay? This first page is a word of encouragement. I'm going to zoom in here. And I'll just read this out loud. Anyone can hand letter as long as you're willing to practice. Think of lettering as drawing shapes. You're not drawing, you're not like modifying your cursive. It's a new skill. It's basically learning the different strokes. And there's, I think, 9 strokes that you need to know. Don't worry about shakiness as you're beginning. That'll even out as you get more seasoned. And in the beginning, focus on each stroke and understand how each letter is formed and created. So I'd like everybody to turn to this one, this first page. This is a reference page for you. Here are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are the basic strokes. And if you know these strokes, you can make any word, any letter at all, okay? So let's take our tracing paper and just put it up there. And maybe I'll zoom in one more time. Okay. And you guys can follow along with me. You know what? I'm going to use a Crayola marker just to show you I don't have to use a special any kind of marker. The very first one is your upstroke, and that's going to be thin. Okay. And then the downstroke is thick. Overturn is starting from the bottom, thin, and when you go on your downstroke, you go thick. Anytime you're doing a downstroke, it's thick, upstroke is thin. So then our underturn is like this, starts thick. And really, the Crayola, you're kind of bending it because it is a shaped tip. You have this tip so you are putting it at an angle. But a regular felt pen, a calligraphy felt pen, is just a regular pointed tip, and it's pressing down. So it's your pressure that gives you the result. Then a compound curve is thin, and when you come down, you press. When you release, you come up. Now, you want to start your release right about there, because what that does is it allows you to kind of rotate around to do that upstroke thin, okay? An oval, we're gonna start thin. We're gonna start about there at about 11 o'clock, and that'll go like to the right, press, release, come around. On the reverse oval, you start about 2 o'clock, and it's still this upstroke, down, and around. And then ascending loop is when it goes above the line. And that starts out right here for your L, H, B, all that. You're starting out thin, pressing as you go down. And then descending for like G, J, Y, all those, is you start thick, and as you come around, you make it thin, okay? If you can learn these strokes, you can learn to calligraphy. And that's the beauty of it, is it is just basic shapes. Rachel has broken this down into light and dark black. So every time it switches, that tells you to pick up your pen. So if I were to do an A, I'd go upstroke, then I'd pick up my pen, come around, stop, do my downstroke, and that continues up here, pick up my pen, downstroke. So you see that by doing, the C is always done in one stroke. And then the D, the D, you do the circle first, and then you do the ascending loop as a separate, okay? And then on there, that's the rest of this page, is just the different strokes. She's broken it down into different steps. So that's a good reference. Also, when you are confused, you can just look at this sheet and you can say, oh yeah, that's how I make that B. It's these 3 different parts, and you can find, so keep this as a reference, keep it to the side whenever you're working on something, okay? And I think I saw Rachel here. Rachel, are you ready to take over, or just want me to keep going for a minute?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
We're
on page 3.
I had to search through old emails. I didn't get the updated email with the Zoom link.
No, you're kidding. I didn't connect you.
No.
Oh, God.
I was like, I don't know how to get in. So I just
I'm
found
sorry.
my way in 8 minutes later. Okay.
Okay, so we're starting on page 3. Do you want to take over with your camera too, or you want me to be the camera?
You know, I think I'll leave you on camera just because I have the baby with me.
Okay.
But I can definitely look at my notes and.
Sure. So tell us about page 3.
Let's go. Okay. So with the basics, you always want to keep in mind every time the pressure goes down, heavy pressure are your downstrokes. And every time your pen goes in an upward motion, that's your light pressure. And I mean like the letter A, or for example, number 3, the stroke. So every time it's toward your body, you're going to apply full pressure. And every time the pen goes away from your body in an upward motion, it's going to be light pressure. And that's with any stroke and any letter of the alphabet. The second basic is never use your pen at the very point. You want to have it slightly at a 45-degree angle on the side, and leaving it on the side is what creates your thicker downstrokes. Yes, you don't make your strokes with the very tip of your pen.
Unless you're using the Crayola, then sometimes
Correct.
you have to.
Of course, these rules are out the window with Crayola. And then, of course, you want to lift your pen right before the bottom. You want to lift before you move on to your upward stroke. If not, you'll end up with a soggy bottom, and too much pressure at the bottom does not really look like calligraphy.
And that's my worst part.
And those are and number 4, hold the pen in the middle of the barrel. That's number 4. There's really not a picture for that. Just hold your pen in the middle of the barrel, and that makes for good flexibility. If you hold it right at the tip, you really lose control and don't see a lot of the I mean the downstroke and upstrokes. Too much. Let me see, I have a note on the filigraphy.
You want to work on the filigraphy?
I'm just gonna, yeah, just demonstrate how it would go. So filigraphy is good to know, so you understand where your thick and thin strokes go. You first write the letter, the words, and you always want to write it as if you're writing the strokes. And then you're gonna add a second line to every downstroke. And then you're going to fill it in. Also, filigraphy is good to know when you don't have a flexible pen, example, this pencil. Our chalkboard is another example. The chalk pens are not flexible, so that's where during your calligraphy journey, you also want to teach yourself filigraphy for non-flexible tips. Yeah, just keep those top basics in mind, and it'll get you far.
Let me get another piece of tracing paper.
Okay. All right, and this page 4, it's this page is for a review of basic strokes. It demonstrates how to use your strokes in different letters. It's more of a worksheet, practice sheet. So at the beginning of each letter, you're going to see different strokes. At top, we have your upstroke and downstroke, and right next to it, it's demonstrated in different, not your traditional up and down. You're going to come across some letters that you may have to alter the shape of your strokes. So here they're demonstrating with the capital letters. I know it's always good to learn capital letters the way Debbie's doing it now, thin up, thick down, because you'll probably end up doing a quote, which we do quite often, don't we, Debbie? We come across it.
Yes, we always have like a
combine. Yeah, you always want to combine, like the lemonade stand or whatever. You always combine capital letters, straight letters with calligraphy and different quotes. So it's always good to learn that as well. And then next you could see the overturn is demonstrated in the letter M and an H and MH. Those 3 strokes really aren't too different, maybe slightly open. But again, this is more of a worksheet, practice sheet. See what letters go into which stroke. Next, we have our underturn. Starts on the left with heavy pressure, back up with light pressure. And one thing I always like to mention, you can always go and add a second line to your thicker strokes if you are not using the right pen or personal preference that it's not thick enough. Just because you put the pen down once doesn't mean you can't go back and make it thicker, just like that. And again, sometimes it happens just depending on what pen you're using. I know some of these Tombows aren't the best at flexibility. And here you could see it in the letter U, Y. The T is a extended underturn. And of course, 2 underturns on the last letter. Oh, what is it? To
Yeah,
me, that looks like a U.
I didn't do that very pretty. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay.
To me, I would classify that as a U, but I think it's demonstrated as a W. Just
yeah, to me it looks like a U because with a tail, with a stroke.
Because I like to teach. Right, I like to teach. Also mention when you're practicing, always include your entrance strokes and your exit strokes. They'll prepare you, set you up.
So here I should have done that, right?
Correct. And just whenever you're doing your own alphabet, teach yourself that way. This worksheet doesn't demonstrate the way I would demonstrate. The compound curve. These are all shaped differently as well. Open, one with the half tail, and the last one with two half entrance and half exit. And you can see the compound curve at the beginning of the Y with the descending stroke, an extended letter N and an X. And the X, you want to start from the bottom up top to make that cross through thinner. And the oval, I like to start a little off, not directly on the top. So I would like to say about 2 o'clock, since this is to me, I would call that a reverse oval, since the thick downstroke is on the left side.
That would be used in the letter D.
O.
O.
D. And then here A and C. C is an open oval.
Oops, I'm running into my other paper. Baby. Okay, so now we've got ascending loop.
Okay, ascending loop has an extended tail here. So instead of like the middle, which is your average ascending loop, you would add a little tail. More for character. For with modern calligraphy, it's not your traditional calligraphy. Modern, you add your own little touch and flourishes.
Okay, so I messed up that oval. Did you see? I didn't come up quick enough.
Oh, soggy bottom. That's an example.
Soggy bottom. That's what I've got.
Release before. There you go. That is your basic ascending combined.
Can I just point out something right here?
Yep.
It's pretty important as you get better at calligraphy to keep this separated. You should complete your oval, and then the tail is right next to it. It doesn't, you don't want to do.
It just barely touches.
Exactly. You don't want to cut in and cut it off, because then you're squaring off your circle.
Correct. And exactly what you said. Look at the bottom. You see how the first one you demonstrated has more of a triangle? That's part of consistency, where the second one you demonstrated doesn't have that little A shape. Yeah. And that's actually one thing you want to keep an eye out and continue to practice that.
So see how that really cuts off that circle. You lose the beauty of the oval when you bring the line down into the letter.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's why the importance of learning our basic strokes, so that you perfect your basic strokes before you move on to your alphabet.
Okay.
And
yep.
okay. And so that we have the descending loop.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
You're still with. Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Descending. And then the descending with an extended tail. One's going straight, one's going more in an upwards motion.
And the oval is more horizontal on this one. Can you see how it's almost laying flat?
Right.
Versus hanging down. This one's hanging down.
And that's part of the modern. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
correct. That's a personal choice.
Right.
Kind of the way I teach my letter O's and my letter R's. Those are all modern calligraphy.
Right. Okay. So now the letters.
with the letter F, that's a combination of the ascending and descending loop. The letter J with an extent. See, so with the letter J, I would consider that adding the exit stroke to get ready for the next letter.
This one, right here?
You're right, the
Or
letter
right
J.
here.
So you would get ready to
Yeah.
attach your next.
Yeah, because I don't think there's a word that ends in J, so you'd never use it as a tail, right? It's always a connecting, J always connects with something.
Okay. I was able to put him down over there. Okay. Exactly. Joy.
Let's see if I can copy that. Not quite. Okay,
Great.
number 5.
Descending.
Or do you want to do this
Okay, so
later?
that one was wait. Yes, I like to wait for the recommendations at the end.
Okay.
Did you go over the just the basic strokes
Yes.
page? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Let me see if I have any. We have a lot of new people in class today.
We do.
Great. Great. Okay. Basically mentioned everything's broken down into a series of strokes to create our alphabet. And like I mentioned, that's where you really want to focus on the beginning. It's all your basic strokes. It's going to be your best friend for a few weeks. Okay. So I have some notes on this page, so this is great.
You want me to still do it, or you want to do this page?
Yes, you could go ahead and do that page.
Okay.
It's just I don't want to have to step away and interrupt the video.
Okay.
Okay, so we've come up with a worksheet. Every month we have the letter of the month, and then of course this month would be the month of July, and a small quote. So here is a what we would call copper plate, uppercase letter D. This letter D has 2 strokes. The first one, you would start with the universal line of beauty, is the nickname, but it is also the main stem, and it actually is more of it's a downstroke, but with, there you go. It's a downstroke with an added tail from the top and bottom. You apply pressure and release before the bottom. So that's pretty much how it starts. A very light pressure, heavy pressure down the center, and then release before the bottom. And this stroke doesn't have a name. But before, okay, so when you get to the bottom, the point is connecting to create that little loop. So you see the very first D. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and create one together. Oh, okay, demonstrated there. So apply pressure and then you swirl it to connect. There you go. So you want to go ahead and make sure when you're practicing the capital letter D to incorporate that little swirl at the bottom. Universal line of beauty. Start on the left with a swirl, full pressure, and then swirl it at the bottom. Oh, that's nice.
Well, thanks.
Great. And see, just like I said, every time your pen goes down, you're going to apply pressure, and every time. And then again, uppercase is a little different. Uppercase, there's strokes in there that don't even exist in the lowercase. And that's the reason I don't sit here and teach the full alphabet. I'm only focusing on just one letter each month, because when you learn calligraphy, you're going to learn your lower cases first. Next, we have our basic D. That is 3 strokes. You're going to start with a thin entrance stroke from the bottom up. Then entrance upstroke, a reverse oval, a release before the bottom, connect, and then a ascending loop combined with a. So see, normally you would say it would be 4 strokes, but what I'm teaching here on the worksheet is where I would lift my pen. So of course I wouldn't lift my pen at the bottom and then add an extra stroke.
No, it would be 3 strokes. Yeah.
Correct. So that's what I'm showing here. Entrance, oval, and a combined ascending loop with a exit stroke.
Ooh, see now, look at my lines way too up and down. I need to do a slant.
And then that's another thing you would find your style, or just depending on what kind of project you're doing, if you're going to be at a slant or you're going to be at an up and down motion. So that's actually a personal preference as well.
And I guess the rule of thumb is you need to be consistent throughout the project.
Consistent.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, one project to the left can be up and down, or that your project to your right will be at a slant. And then I'm going to cover bases on different guidelines. I put together something, Debbie. This is demonstrating a bounce letter D. And here I added an extra, an extended ascending loop, and with the ascending loop and the exit stroke, I drop it below the baseline. And with bounce calligraphy, you're always it's known to go below the baseline and above the ascending line. And then the rule of thumb with bounce, it's not every letter is not, how do I say it?
Oh, I forgot to do the entrance loop.
Entrance.
I'm sorry?
There you go. The rule of thumb with bounce, you kind of got to draw your base word and then add from there. Just because the letter D is bounced here doesn't mean every single word you do in bounce that the letter D is going to be bounced. Bounce is more of a balance. So I would always recommend sketching out your word and then adding your bounce where it looks balanced in your word. That makes sense.
That's good advice. Let me change pens real quick.
So yeah, the letter D is a filigraphy is usually wrote with a monoline pen, ballpoint pen, color pencil, pencil.
Let me do it with pencil.
Perfect. Same thing as the capital. It pretty much has the same. I just, instead, it went through.
Yep, it jumped.
It jumped. Yeah, it didn't stay on the left side. And that's just because I was following a guide, and I just really like the way this one looked. Switch up, give you options on how to write the letter D. Right. And again, with filigraphy, you can choose to fill it in or not fill it in. Sometimes it's fun to fill in those extra spaces. And again, I demonstrated here left open so that you can have fun with it and fill it in with watercolor or markers, Crayola, anything to get fun and creative with those open spaces. And of course, on a bigger scale, the open spaces will be a lot wider. Perfect. Yeah, and see, this is actually a good demonstration how she did it in in pencil, and how she went with the gold. You would go back with your black ink and outline everything, and it just smooths everything out. And that's just for your bigger final pieces. Going in pencil with all these projects is always the best thing to do. Yeah, see? Looks great. Because I always like to think of calligraphy as drawing.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Little quote here that goes with the theme of the month.
Okay.
I'm here. Just enjoying the satisfying calligraphy. It's always nice to see somebody else do calligraphy.
Yes, it is. I know I get hooked on the calligraphy Instagram
The
videos.
videos. The O there, that's a more of a modern, my type of letter O, but there's all kinds. That's a personal.
Yep.
And of course, another key point is lifting your pen in between every stroke. So even if the one, like for example, back to the letter D, the D has multiple strokes, it wouldn't be one stroke. You would lift your pen every time a new stroke comes in. So here's just a demonstration of every stroke that is in the word July.
Use a Crayola on July.
Okay. Crayola is a great way to get started if you don't have a flexible pen at the moment. Here we have 6 strokes with the letter July. Starts with an entrance stroke, a descending loop, 2 underturns back to back. The letter L is, I actually combined it, the ascending and a compound curve. So when it's L and a Y like that, you kind of course, after many years of practice, you see, you feel, you can kind of see where it's not necessary to lift your pen because it doesn't look so great combining them. Here's a demonstration of the bounce. Going above, this one is, since it's lowercase, going above the X height and below the baseline. And again, when I was designing it, I write it out straight like the first one, and then I decided where I wanted my bounce to go. Some words are kind of hard. Some words are harder to bounce than others. And then here's July and filigree again. And again, this is a practice sheet, so I encourage you to get a blank sheet of paper and rewrite all these lines over and over just for practice. If you only want to focus just on bounce lettering, play around with just bounce lettering or filigraphy. And of course, on the top half, I highly recommend filling up one line of just the copper plate uppercase and lowercase. And oh, so now we have our flourish.
You went into the Y with that. Very cool.
Yes. And again, with the flourishes, it's the same thing as the bounce. You write it the way you write July basic, like the very first one, and then you decide where your flourishes go. And with this one, I actually combined flourish and bounce. So, okay, so what I did on this one, if you want to practice on your own, I think I did the J, but I stopped at the main stem, on the main downstroke right at the bottom, right there. So, okay, I continue through, go ahead. And then I did the little loop, continue, did the loop, and then I stopped right there. I stopped at the downstroke. So
right here.
Right there. So then the letter Y is actually connected.
So it's the Y that you took around.
That I took and connected to the correct. Because during my sketching process, it wasn't looking correct if I did it the other way.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
And that's the fun thing with flourishes. You have to either go backward or forward to get the correct looking flourish. Also, flourishes are most of the time oval shaped. You're rarely gonna see a flourish that's a circle. More oval shape, correct. Mm-hmm.
Or oval coming down.
Correct.
Okay.
Looping it through. Come back every month and you'll see every month in flourish. We have July with extended. Extended is just extending your entrance and exit strokes. So I actually just wrote it again like the very first July, and instead of lifting my pen right away, I extended every exit stroke. Exit stroke. These are good for bullet journaling. If you combine the bottom two.
Yeah, a lot of times they'll take it and let me just show you what they would do.
Combining the last
On a
two.
bullet journal, you may have seen this, is that they would combine, let's say, today's the 14th, right? So you could go F, O, U, R, T, E, B, N, T, H to make it July 14th. So they do it a lot for dates.
Or even just using the same July.
I couldn't figure out how to do July.
I want to say maybe you would write the word July first, and maybe spread it out.
Right.
And
I think
that's when you.
Right. I think I would go July.
Yeah. It's because when you do capital, it spreads it out for you naturally.
Right. And then you go over it with
a black. And then extend it to the middle. There you go. And then a little, there you go. And then extend the Y as far as you can.
Oh, I should have spread the U and the Y farther apart.
But that's the right idea.
But that's the idea.
Correct.
Okay. And what's this bottom here?
It was that.
Oh, it got cut off on my page. Oh,
yeah, it was what you just demonstrated.
Well, you already had it. I didn't realize that. So then you could just do the July across.
With a different color, or yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But
so
no,
I could
you
do,
can.
this one I could do.
Perfect.
Across that way.
There you go. And then of course you make it, you find the colors you like, or with the capital you would make your downstrokes thicker, and you find your way. Does anybody have any questions just on basics, since this is our beginner class, before we move on to the project?
I don't see anything in the chat, but I just opened it up. You guys can unmute yourself and ask any questions. Rachel, I've got the how to prime a chalkboard if we want to watch that right now.
Okay. And then I'll show my video.
Yeah. So all of you have a piece of chalk that you should have come with your kit. We're going to show why it's important to prime your chalkboard. Can you guys all see that? Here we go.
And it's very pretty, very rustic, looks very nice. So those are some of the surfaces. Now I'm going to show you how to season your chalkboard. So if you didn't season your chalkboard and you decide to write on it, so I'm not going to season this yet. I'm going to go ahead and write the word hi over here. Okay, so this is before I seasoned it. So if I go to erase it, you can still see the word hi. It won't erase off of my chalkboard. The reason for that, and they call that a ghost image, the reason for that is because the chalkboard paint is filled with different pores. And if you don't fill those pores prior to writing on it, whatever image or writing or anything you put down first will stay in the pores. So before you do that, you want to fill those pores with chalk so that the chalk is already in there, and that your writing isn't the part that stays there. So the way to do that is you're going to get a piece of chalk, and I prefer to use cheap chalk for this part, not my anti-dust chalk. So what you do is you're going to take your piece of chalk and break it in half, and then you're going to lay it horizontally onto your board, okay? And this is a piece that I've used a few times, so I'll show you what that looks like. You can see how it's flat on one edge. It's because I've used it on a couple different chalkboards. So you go ahead and you rub it up and down on your chalkboard surface. And then you're also going to go the other direction, so side to side. Completely fill your chalkboard with chalk. Then you're going to take your t-shirt, like a scrap of t-shirt or beaver paper towel or washcloth, and you're going to rub the chalk into the surface. You're not rubbing it off, you're rubbing it in. So I use a circle motion and rub all that chalk into your surface. Then, when you write on it, and you erase, you don't even see it. So it's like it was never there. So always season your chalkboard first. Decide what chalkboard surface you want to work on to begin with, whatever works for you. I hope this video was helpful, and if you are interested, check out my other videos where I can show you all the different lettering techniques and elements that you can add to your chalk art. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks, guys.
Debbie.
Yes.
My video is completely lost.
Lost?
With that issue I told you I had, it's just not even playing. All that footage is gone.
Oh no. Hold on.
Yeah.
I
So
gotta get, hang on. My screen is still going.
Okay. But of course I can walk you through the steps of how I created this chalkboard.
Okay, just a second. I got to get this extra. Hold on. It just keeps going. I need to, there we go. Okay. That's okay. We can just do this.
Well, I mean, I can walk you through the steps of how I
Yeah.
did mine, for sure.
Do you want to use your camera or do you want me to keep going?
Well, the thing is, mine is done. My chalkboard is done, and I want them to see you make the board, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I should have given you 2 of them. Okay, I'm seasoning mine.
It's small. I was able to use a tip. Yeah. Just because of the size and the border.
You guys can tape this off and paint it to the frame afterwards if you want.
I thought about that, like staining it or even adding some doodles.
Right. Okay, so walk us through.
Okay, so that is not needed yet. What I did is actually sketched it on a piece of paper to know how it was gonna fit.
And what word are we going to use? So we're going to do the lemonade, or are we going to do? Welcome.
So it's actually I have fresh lemonade.
Okay.
So I was actually trying to do the similar to the bottom one, of course, without the lemons. I just, after the sizing of the chalk, I was only able to fit fresh, but I'll definitely show mine at the end.
Okay.
So my recommendation would be to measure it. The measurements I got off of it, and I know this, I don't know if they want to measure it now.
We can measure it. I've got it measuring. Okay.
Yeah, so I got 4.5 and height 3.5.
Right. So that's, and we're trying to find the middle.
Well, what I did was for my page, to sketch it on my page.
Oh, I see.
So these are, I mean, do you want to show that step? Because that was in the video. But in the
Find the
end,
middle?
yes. Well, I just sketched it on a blank sheet of paper just to practice what I was going to do completely.
Okay.
You can just do a quick sketch, but for future processes, any project you do, that's kind of the process I would take. You want to take your measurements, see what space you're working with, sketch it out, and see what fits and doesn't fit. Correct. 3.5.
3.5?
Yes. Correct. And it just avoids erasing constantly on your, so you see with this chalk, it actually sticks. So just a heads up, you may need a wet wipe to correct any mistakes. So this is definitely a good step to take, because that chalk writer is not like what you just demonstrated by seasoning the chalk.
Did you do guidelines then?
Okay,
Or
well,
just,
that's the thing. I use a guideline sheet, but yes, you can.
okay.
What I did, lemonade is going to go directly in the center.
Okay.
And then you're going to have, I want, should I
Show us your finished one.
Okay, just so we can kind of see. Okay. Let me know when I'm ready. Can you see that?
No, you need to share it.
Oh, well, I have it in front of me, so can you make me?
Okay, I'm gonna pin you. Hold on.
There you go.
Hold on, where are you? There you are. Oh, cute. That's adorable. Okay, I see where you're going with it.
Look at my original sketch. Fresh, ice cold, and sweet.
Now it's just too much.
And then I even added a flourish to the letter N. So here are my mistakes. Obviously, look at the thickness of the chalk and the thickness of the pencil. So it looked nice on paper, but once I got to the chalkboard, that couldn't happen. So this is what I'm having you do right now.
Okay.
And then see here, I use line paper.
Mm-hmm. So that you could just make sure you're straight.
Right. And it was more just again for designing purposes, because of course you don't have all those lines here. Okay. So then what I want you to sketch is this
Mm-hmm.
on your little square that you made. And again, it's just for practice, just to get the motions down. And that's for everybody following along as well on your sketch piece of paper. But see, that pencil was so thick that I can barely even get thin and thick down, but I did keep my basic strokes in mind every
So
time.
it only has the one tip. It's not dual tipped.
Not that one.
Okay.
Not the chalk writer.
Oh gosh, that is really
Look,
thick.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really thick.
Okay, so that lady that you actually showed, I've seen her videos, lots of her videos, because I've done other chalk projects before, actually for a wedding. So she actually recommends sharpening your chalk. So our regular classic chalk, if you watch her videos, she has a metal sharpener and a chalk holder that creates her thick and thin, and it's basically like a pen. She created a chalk. So my question is, I wonder if this can be sharpened if you find a thick enough.
It's rubber though.
Okay.
I doubt it.
Okay.
So it's just really supposed to be used on a bigger slate.
On a bigger scale. They have these. I have a chalk pencils. That's an alternative for a smaller area. Chalk pencils. And they of course have chalk.
But you could also just sharpen your chalk, right?
Correct. Or there's even a chalk marker, and the chalk marker has a fine point.
Okay, so I'm starting to chalk mine.
Okay.
But I think we want yours up there as reference. See, I can tell already that's too.
Put my phone.
Think of your typography as condensed. If you've ever written condensed, this is the time.
And then if you do have to remove it, again, you will have to use a wet wipe. I have baby wipes that I keep at my desk, and I cut them in to little squares.
That's a good idea.
Chop them up so I don't have to use a whole wipe. And just went in. I had to do the fresh multiple times. And the only thing is I would recommend seasoning it every time, because a wet wipe is gonna lift everything, but a cloth will not remove this chalk writer.
So you can use alcohol or fingernail polish remover
If it's not.
to clean off the writer.
Also, I actually this was in the video. I learned my lesson. I know how to upload the videos now, so it's never gonna happen again. Anyways, once I got my sketch down, I cut it out so it fits exactly. And I just folded, and I actually sketched with the chalk. I just sketched it.
Nice.
So then even as you're writing and re-erasing, actually, I'm sorry. Okay, so that's, I folded it both ways. So that's that. And then I actually sketched it completely with this. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
With the chalk
Yeah.
before the writer.
Yes.
Okay, see, okay,
I
so
don't know
yes.
if you can see it. Can you see it?
I cannot. I think I'm on.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to spotlight my video because that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to, if everybody's ready to that point. Okay. And we will try it. Okay. So I am actually going to start, since it doesn't matter, I'm going to start backwards. And I'm going to start fresh from the right.
I'll also send you a picture, Debbie, of my final piece for those of you that are not doing it now, or if you're going to do it later.
Yeah.
To send a picture of what I did for reference. But that's a good tip right there, Debbie. I like that.
Okay. And same with here, I'm going to get my scents in. Okay. And then the next important thing that I would think would be to do the L. Okay.
Nice.
Okay, now I'm going to just try to do this more condensed. Now, what did you do? You did something different with the D.
Oh, and added a flourish at the top. Mine ended up coming about above the M. So it's a extended ascending loop. So you know how we do the letter TH, Debbie? And we add the same thing. So start slightly above the M or the O, yes, in that area, and flourish all the way through. There you go.
Okay. This is really a greasy pen. I'm not impressed at all with this pen.
It's oily. It's almost like the oil pastels.
Yeah, it's not. I've seen a lot of chalk markers where it is really kind of almost paint-like.
Well, that's what I showed you. The other one I showed you is called Bistro. That's what you just said, a paint. This one is waxy.
Yeah, this is waxy.
But I think it's fine, but maybe for bigger projects.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to just go over the L to make it bigger.
Yeah, because I really don't see too much calligraphy in my lemonade.
Oh, nor mine.
But I still have it displayed in my kitchen.
It still works.
For memories. I'm reading it and it's saying it's good for, I think this is good for window display.
Ah, yeah.
That's what I see.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to try to do is just bring this down. You can scribble it down to a point.
Oh, that's smart.
You can. Yeah, that works. See, I've gotten a point. I got a point now.
Oh, look at that. Good idea.
So you can just kind of scribble it Oops, or you can also
doing
break
it.
it off.
Don't push too hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe roll it since it's so smooth. Roll it
Yeah, I'm trying to, that's what I'm trying now.
like a real sharpener. Roll it on your paper back and forth.
Yeah,
There you. I'm doing it. It's working.
it's working.
Or maybe do a little bit at a time and then extend it and do it some more.
And then wipe it maybe.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great pen. I like it. I
So,
guess just this is a small frame.
yeah, so that works to make it finer.
Good tip. I'm glad I kept my little sketch. I kept it together with my notes and my video is gone.
Where did it go? That's so weird.
What's happening, I was doing the frame and the ornament and I had all these videos. So when it came to uploading it onto our Google Drive, I didn't have enough memory.
Oh, okay.
I just...
So it still could be in your photos.
Well, no, my cloud, I didn't save my cloud, my backup. That's where it was because I didn't have my cloud I have my cloud turned off for this reason, since I started making videos.
Yes, and it takes up all the memory. Yeah.
And I came across the problem and I see why the cloud, just another lesson learned.
How'd you guys do?
I want to see some.
I'm going to stop the video and we'll look.
Okay.
I'm going to
recommendations.
Okay, you're on camera. You're big.
Okay. So, as far as basic last minute things, that's what I'm saying. Last minute things. When you do your strokes, learning your strokes in alphabet, there's different guidelines. So I always like to talk about guidelines. I always talk about it, never had nothing visual. Our lines have labels. You heard us say baseline, X height, so forth. So just right off the bat, this is in the packet as well. We have our ascender height. Our X height is the height above the middle line, but the whole middle line would be considered the X height, and that's where all your words will be formed. All your ascending loops will go above the X height and below the baseline, and then stop at the descender. So just to know that each line has a name. Other forms of guidelines to practice with would be a basic grade school 2 rows. So we have here. This one is more of on a slant. This is, again, just beginner, just playing around with the strokes and learning your basic strokes. This one, when you get more technical and you learn words and, like we mentioned, staying consistent, these two show it at a slant. So if you want your style to be more angled, go for a guideline that's angled. You can just use plain printer lined paper, spiral paper. Another form is dot paper. And the last, I would just recommend sketching out your own using a ruler, which I don't have one on me right now, but just building your own guidelines. And then you have your X height here. And then just sketching it on a piece of paper and creating your own guidelines if you can't print or find any guidelines that work for you. So you don't have to just depend on guidelines. You can practice any form. We have our recommendations. It's our very last page in our packet. Actually, tips to help you practice, that's first. Be consistent with the sizing with the letters. So you're gonna have the letter C, but then your letter A is gonna stay. You're not gonna make a bigger letter A. So that's what I mean by being consistent with the sizing straight across. Choose an angle, just like I mentioned, you're either gonna go up and down or stay in an angle. The spacing between each letter. So same here, every time you're creating your words, you wanna stay consistent and not leave too much space in between. Use guidelines, like I mentioned. Lift your pen after every stroke. Always practice your entrance and exit strokes. Use your wrist and arm movement. Instead of just staying in one spot, you really won't see much improvement. Sometimes you will, because that's just how you taught yourself calligraphy. But if you're having trouble, try using arm and wrist and shoulder movements to get the thin and thick strokes. I highly recommend doing rows and rows of basic strokes at the beginning and doing rows and rows of alphabets at the beginning. Try different writing tools, Crayola, pen tools, flexible tips, non-flexible tips, pens, bigger brush pens, smaller brush pens, whatever works for you and the projects you're doing. And practicing helps with muscle memory, which eventually will help with shakiness. So those are my final tips. And just some supply recommendation. Rhodia notepad, that's actually this right here, the dotted page. If you can see that it's dotted. Can you see that, Debbie? Not really. Debbie?
Too fine.
Oh, okay, too light. Okay. Do I have it? Let me see. Rhodia. That's the brand. Smooth paper. I don't even have it. Smooth paper. It helps your pens from fraying. So if you have to use printer paper or basic spiral paper, I would say try not to use a flexible tip because the chances of your pen fraying are higher. Your flexible tips can fray. Use HP premium paper or even tracing paper. So that says here, prevents brush tips from fraying. Tombow is this one. There is a soft tip and a hard tip. I have both of them. And I have that black, but what I actually meant is green. I don't still change it. The green barrel is our softer tip, and which they look the same, but identifying them is just the color of the barrel. The blue barrel is the hard tip. That's another personal preference. I would recommend these two pens at the very beginning during your practices and using both of them, and you're just going to see which one works best for you. Tombow Dual, that's a large brush pen. Large Tombow dual brush pen. Has a flexible tip on one side and a hard point on the other side. Other pens, Pentel sign brush pen, that is actually, when you look up the word Pentel, make sure it says brush, not, they have some that are a hard tip. You want to make sure they have a flexible tip. Kelly Crates is another brand that makes good pens in small and large. The dip pens, the brand we recommend would be a Manuscript. That's what we have at the library, what we usually, when we do teach dip pen, we would recommend that. They also make some that are off-centered. And again, that's a personal preference depending on what you get used to. Watercolor using a Pentel gouache brush pen is ways to create calligraphy, and also using small paint brushes. Crayola and Sharpie have their own brush pen. You can check those out, or you can also just use their classic Crayola markers to get started, and also Sharpie can work. But of course, with the classic Crayola, like Demby was demonstrating, you can create a thick stroke using the side of the pen. Drafting pencil and eraser is always recommended. I always recommend it because you're always gonna sketch. Like, again, we demonstrated in class where sketching comes first, and then you can always outline your final piece. That is it.